At Affinity Plus, our members come first.
Affinity Plus helped me a lot to pass through this tough time.
My family was negatively affected.
Affinity Plus showed that they are invested in our success.
You are the top priority.
And they did it proactively.
I have found them to be respectful, supportive, and compassionate.
I don't feel judged.
I feel when I go, I'm in safe hands.
And that is why I bank with
Affinity Plus.
Hi, everybody, and welcome again to Gophers Review and Preview. Thanks to Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, I'm Justin Gard. We appreciate you checking out our new venture this year. And we're going to drop a show every Wednesday night, and it will live forever on all of our social media channels. But basically, the gist of it is we're going to review the Gopher game that just happened, preview what's coming up with friends of mine and some members of the coaching staff. And we have a member of the coaching staff joining us in segment number 2. Paul Haynes is the cornerbacks coach. He's in his first year at the U. I actually interviewed him about 5 years ago when he was the head coach at Kent State University, and they came in to play the Gophers. So he's a great guy, good storyteller, has a lot to talk about when it comes to how long he's known PJ Fleck, what brought him to the U, what he thinks of his group, and truthfully how they fix the defense here moving forward, because that is the A topic of the season that we're going to discuss in our first segment with my friend Andy Greeter, who we'll get to in just a second. But I want to thank again Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union for helping out with this new show, helping out with this new venture. They've been phenomenal partners the last couple of years. They've been proud supporters of Gopher Athletics forever, and they've jumped on with us in a lot of different things that we've done here the last few years. So thank you to Affinity Plus. To learn more about their membership, go to affinityplus.org. When you are a member at Affinity Plus, you get a top-rated mobile app, and you deal with people that care. That's the difference in working with Affinity Plus that I've noticed the last few years. As opposed to your typical bank or credit union, they are invested in you. So if you're looking for a new credit union, if you're looking for someone to help you with all your financial needs, I highly recommend Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union. All right, let's get to the show. Andy Greeter writes for the Pioneer Press. He covers everything, has covered everything, but he covers, for us, in this case, Golden Gopher football. And through the magic, there's Andy Greeter. At Andy Greeter on Twitter, twincities.com. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. The reason you were sitting there so long is I was giving your bio, and you cover everything for the Pioneer Press. You covered the United that you're about to do tonight. You've covered COVID-19 a little bit for the Pioneer Press, and you cover Gopher football. How do you keep all of that straight?
Well, thankfully, I don't have to do much COVID anymore, so that's good. I was a news reporter for a number of years, and they kind of tasked me when sports got shut down to help out with that. So that was a harrowing time, but had to call on some of that stuff at that juncture. But don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, with the both kinds of football going at the same time, it's very busy, but it's a good time of year to have both things going and a sense of normalcy in a crazy year.
Yeah, it's nice to have some sports to at least discuss. Some Gopher fans may disagree given how the season has gone so far. Let's talk about the Maryland game. We're going to review the Maryland game and then preview a little bit about what's coming up with Illinois, Andy. But as you were watching that Maryland game, what's the A topic so far for not just that game, but the Michigan game as well?
Is how can you have the same breakdowns week over week, the same problems, without being able to set an edge, without being able to tackle, with having communication issues. To see the same problems reoccur week over week was the most startling thing for me. And it sounds like Joe Rossi will be able to talk here later in the week. So maybe next week's show will have some answers, both in how they respond against Illinois and what they did wrong again against Maryland. But I think that was the most flabbergasting thing about the entire thing, is that they had so many problems against Michigan, and we saw those same issues reoccur for the most part against Maryland.
Well, what's surprising is, Joe Rossi, I think, is a really good coordinator, and I'm going to talk to Paul Haynes about that, the cornerbacks coach, here in our second segment. But when he got the job a couple of years ago on an interim basis, one of the first things that you noticed in that Purdue week was guys weren't making mistakes. They were in the right spot. They were where they were supposed to be. Communication seemed good. Difference would be you were dealing with guys that had already been on good defenses in the Kill and Clays era, right? You were dealing with Winfield. You were dealing with Martin, Carter Coughlin, Blake Cashman. You had guys that had been on good defenses. They just weren't playing well. What worries me here, Andy, is I'm wondering who's going to be those guys. Maybe not NFL draft picks like they had last year, but the big knockers, as you say, on Bumper to Bumper, the guys that are going to say, this is where it stops, this is where it ends, and this is how we fix it. That's what I'm struggling with. Who would be your likely candidates from this defense to be those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same question. I wonder who the leaders are of this unit. You know, I mean, you look at a guy like Micah Treadway, who's been at Notre Dame, who's been here for a few years, an experienced guy on the defensive line. You wonder if he can take a bigger role. And then the cornerbacks, guys that have played a lot of games here. Benjamin St-Juste, Coney Durr, guys that were pretty good for the most part against Michigan, who had really tough games against Maryland. To see them struggle the way that they did, thinking that those were going to be two leaders for this defense, and see them struggle and Benjamin St-Juste seemingly get benched during that game,
right,
were very eye-opening. So, yeah, I mean, that's the top question that I have is who's going to be the guy that's going to grab the team, grab the unit by the neck and by the collar, by the shirt collar, and say, enough's enough, and we need to do the right things and be in the right spots and not do each other's job and just do our own.
What have you noticed from the offense through 2 games?
A team that can really do some things.
Yeah.
I think that what was interesting is how much they ran the ball against Maryland. I mean, they had a lot of success with that through 3 quarters, and Mo, was record tying and a lot of, with 4 touchdowns in the first half and 40-some carries and 200-plus yards, and now leads the Big Ten in all of those categories. And then, kind of an efficient passing game. I mean, they haven't, really taken the top off the defense, but we've been able to see them move the ball and be efficient. And they cut out the turnovers in the last game, which was big for them as well. So it'd be nice to see a little bit more downfield passing from them, but I think we know that they're capable of that. I just wonder if the offensive line is going to be able to weather the storm. I mean, they don't have Curtis Dunlap. They don't have Daniel Fa'alele.
Right.
Axel Rushmeyer, who stepped in and looked like he had a pretty nasty injury where he got rolled up on in the Maryland game, and he didn't return for that. And, if that's a high ankle injury, which it kind of looked like, that could cost him, the better part of the rest of this condensed season. So do they have enough to replace that up front to be as successful as they have been on offense?
If you just jumped on this stream, this is Gopher Review and Preview thanks to Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union. I'm Justin Gard. My guest is Andy Greeter from the Pioneer Press. You can follow his work at twincities.com and follow him on Twitter at Andy Greeter. Covers the Gophers and a bunch of other stuff for the Pioneer Press. As you've watched the transition of the offense, Andy, how different do you think they are from a year ago, whether it's Kirk Shiraka leaving, whether it's Tyler Johnson leaving, and the backs that we talked about? Have you noticed different things stylistically year over year as they try to figure out their new identity at all?
I think, it's a lot of similar things. I think they want to be a heavy run team. I think we've seen, what they call a rhino package where they bring in an extra offensive lineman. We see a lot of 2 tight end sets. We saw some 2 running back looks, especially in the Michigan game, which was an interesting wrinkle that we haven't seen before. In the Michigan game, they also had more jet sweeps. I think those were things that we saw from Mike Sanford that we didn't see under Kirk Shiraka. In the first game, they incorporated the tight end more, which is something that I think Gopher fans were looking for a lot under Kirk Shiraka. I think they had 7 targets in that game. And then, when they cut out some of the downfield passing in the Maryland game, we didn't see those tight end targets as much. Right. I think we see a lot of similar things inside, outside zone. I think we see some RPO game. I think we see a lot of short, intermediate passing, a lot of slants and posts that have been successful for them. I think we're still looking for an emergence for a tight end to kind of be a go-to receiver. I think we're looking for a 3rd wide receiver. Daniel Jackson had his first catch. Chris Ottman-Bell had his first 100-yard game against Maryland, showing that he can be a counterbalance to Rashad Bateman. I think that's encouraging. And I wonder, Mo Ibrahim, where his health is after having 41 carries. PJ was on your other show on KFAN talking about seeing him get foot massages in the training room and just saying, hey, go ahead, keep doing that.
Yeah.
But I think you need to spell him. You can't give him that many carries week in and week out, and want to see some more of Trayson Potts, who's shown a little bit of spark too.
Yeah, I thought he looked pretty good, and we talked about that on the PJ Fleck TV show this week. PJ told me that they've moved from foot massages, now they're working on his shoulders, so you can have that nugget. So Mo's getting the complete workover. Last thing on the Maryland game before we talk a little bit about Illinois and everything that they're dealing with right now. What do you think happened to the offense there in that 4th quarter? I mean, we're going to remember that the defense gave up 2 really quick touchdown drives, but I know when they kicked the field goal to go up 17, I'm thinking I've seen this game before from a PJ Fleck team, right? They're going to get a big lead, and then they're going to basically salt the next possession away, whatever it is, whether it was the Wisconsin game a few years ago, the bowl game when they did the same thing. What happened? What was the difference in the fourth quarter against Maryland where they couldn't quite finish it?
Well, I think Mo's carries started to rack up. I think he probably lost a little bit of his overall quality, just given those carries stack up. I saw some real conservative play calling. I saw a lot of runs that maybe could have been passing downs to be able to convert when you've got opportunities for Rashad Bateman and Chris Ottman-Bell, guys that have played and made plays for this offense, and you don't put the ball in their hands very much. Obviously it comes down to the last drive in regulation. I think they had even boxes in both of those first two snaps, 6 versus 6. We're able to block it and get 8 yards to set up a 3rd and short, and they get a 9-man box, and you have one-on-one on the outside for Ottman-Bell and Bateman, and they don't check out of the play. They don't even look really to the sideline to see about another option, and they run into a stacked box, and it gets stuck. And that could have been a great opportunity to try to, test one of the outside guys and put them in advantageous position to make a play. And I asked PJ about that on Monday, and he said that was entirely his fault. He looked at the previous drive when they went 3 and out, and then Maryland, went right down the field on them to tie the game. And he thought, hey, maybe we can, just get these 2 yards, which you think, okay, Mo's got 200 plus.
Yep.
2 at this juncture, even if it is a stacked box. And then you were able to bleed the clock out and kind of get in maybe field position to kick a field goal, or just kind of keep bleeding the clock because the defense has shown no ability to stop them. So that's what was PJ's reasoning there, but he took responsibility for being so conservative there.
Would you have gone for 2 in overtime?
I don't know. I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, Brock Walker I think he was 5 for 5 on extra points and made a 25-yard field goal, but that's the pressure situation, a guy that hasn't been in that spot very often. And, with a backup kicker, in the way that the defense has been playing, I think maybe just try to, either you do a wildcat with Seth Green, which was successful, or you throw a fade to Bateman, give it to your best player, dial up a number for number 0. And, I think that you probably do something like that, just given the fact that you hadn't been able to stop Maryland all day.
Yeah, that was my thing. It has nothing to do with Brock. It has nothing to do with the kicker. It has to do with your defense, and I asked him about it right away in the post game, and he said, well, we were getting the ball right back. And I said, well, so were they. That's the problem. You scoring wasn't the problem, them scoring. And I had the same feeling when Zimmer went for it on 4th and 1 and tried to take it out of Russell Wilson's hands. It didn't work, but I loved it. But that's neither here nor there. We can move on. It's the Illinois championship season now, Andy Greeter, on this Gopher Review Preview. Illinois they've had some COVID issues. They're missing the top 2 quarterbacks because of it. Their 3rd-string quarterback had an ankle injury last weekend against Purdue. He had to leave the game. So they had their 4th-stringer, and he actually didn't play too terribly, and he's a mobile quarterback, which has given the Gophers trouble here. As you prepared to cover this game and check out the Illini, what stands out about Lovie Smith's crew?
Yeah, I think it's an offense that has really struggled. I mean, they're last in the Big Ten in scoring, and the 4th-string quarterback had some success, but he also turned the ball over 4 times. He had 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, and kind of really struggled at times. But yeah, like you mentioned, Tagovailoa completely gashed the Gophers by extending plays out of the pocket and using his feet to run the ball. And when you have the gaps that the Gophers have let other teams have, you wonder if that's going to be something that could strike again against this Illini team. Yeah, I mean, there's probably 10 or so guys of those 14 that were contributors that are out with COVID. They're starting centers out, their number 1 kickers out. You go on down the list, and there's a number of guys that have been impacted by it. And they're 0-2, and they hung and made a late challenge against Purdue. But this is a great opportunity for the Gophers, who last I checked were a 7-point favorite. But we saw what Vegas had for the Gophers last week with a upwards of 20-point line and how that worked out. So I think it's going to be a really challenging week, just because we have yet to see the Gophers defense stop anybody. They've only forced 2 punts all year, and until they're able to do that, you go into it with reservations that they're going to be able to do it at all.
I appreciate it, man. Travel safely to Champaign. I'll wave to you from afar. I basically get to see nobody, including our own broadcast crew. So I'll wave to you. I'll be in row 1 or row 2 with my mask. You can say what's up, but thanks for joining the show, and we'll probably catch up with you a little bit later in the season as this will go all the way through the 8+1. Thanks, man.
Cool. Appreciate it.
That is Andy Greeter from the Pioneer Press. Follow him at Andy Greeter on Twitter. Check out all of his work, including a really good profile he did on Chris Ottman-Bell this week, the wide receiver who had a couple of touchdowns here against Maryland. He's one of the best that covers the Gophers, and we appreciate him taking the time. Going to get to Paul Haynes, the cornerbacks coach, in just a minute. Want to thank again Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union for helping us out with this new venture and this new show. They've been absolutely supportive every step of the way, and I want to remind you, if you do become a member, affinityplus.org is where you can learn all the information. You can learn about their video banking, which is now live with Affinity Plus. From new memberships to new loans or even general questions, Affinity Plus employees can help you now through video banking. So that's just another service that they provide, affinityplus.org. Let's get to the cornerbacks coach, Paul Haynes, in his first year at the University of Minnesota. All right, well, Coach, I want to start because this is your first year at Minnesota. I think there's a lot to discuss about even what brought you here. I'm curious, as you were looking for a new gig this year after the coaching change at Michigan State, what was it about Minnesota that stood out to you, and why did you end up coming here?
Well, me and Coach Fleck go way back. We were together at Ohio State. I was a secondary coach. Coach Fleck was a grad assistant, at the time on offense. But we have always stayed in contact, and we coached against each other when I was the head coach at Kent State and he was at Western Michigan. There's a head coaches thing that they have in Phoenix, and I think it's early May. And every time we went to that, we would always kind of hang out. His wife, my wife, Danita, his wife, Heather, we would just sit there and hang out and always kind of stayed in contact. And when this opportunity came, this is my 27th year of coaching.
Right.
So, been a head coach, been a coordinator, been a lot of different places. It's all about the people, for me right now. It's all about, not a place, but it's all about the people. I just want to be around good people, and Coach Fleck is one of the best of them, so that's kind of when it happened at Michigan State, man. I mean, I met with Coach Tucker on Thursday. I got a call from Coach Fleck on Friday, and wow. Me and my wife sat there and we talked, and it was kind of a no-brainer, at the time. I took the job, right away, so it wasn't think about it, because again, it was all about, I know Coach Fleck, I know what he's about, and I know what he's building, and it was all about the people, and it was a no-brainer for me and my wife.
You mentioned you go all the way back. 2006, I think, was his grad year. And I love talking to people that worked with Coach Fleck back then, because we see him now, right? He's by no means a finished product, but he's now, an established head coach.
Yeah.
What do you remember about, I'm imagining, like, for the era, like frosted tips hair, like cool sunglasses, and a lot of energy, obviously. What do you remember about his grad assistant days, even though you guys were on other sides of the ball? You know what?
He was the same. He was the same person. There was, of course, you said there was a lot of energy. There was a lot of pride in what he did. When you're a grad assistant, which I was too, you are the head coach of that scout team.
Yeah.
And it's how you run that scout team is prepares the offense or the defense. And he took a ton of pride, in his scout team, and he fought for his scout team, and he had a lot of energy with his scout team. So that is who he is, and it has never changed, as far as that. And through the years, as I watched him and we competed against each other and all of that, that's who he is. It never changed.
So as someone who's seen him at a couple of different spots and observed his program at Western Michigan while you were at Kent State, what's it like, now that you're in it? Because as Coach says, it's different than probably anything else you've ever done. What's it been like for you to jump into this program and kind of see how he likes to do things and how the program is run?
It's been fun. And one of the things that I've always sat there and said, no matter where you are, what level you are at coaching, how many years you've been coaching, to me, it's still all about growth, and you have to continue to grow as a coach. And the way that you do that is you get out of your comfort zone. Very easily I could have went, somewhere else that been in my comfort zone and not been challenged to get out of my comfort zone and doing, certain things. Coach Fleck, he challenges you to every single day bring the energy. He challenges you like crazy to every single day to be positive, you know, and that's not easy to do in this profession all the time, you know, and those are the things that are different that you have to continue. You know, for me, it's what I was looking for, be around the right people and continue to grow, you know, to learn different ways and learn different things. And even though we have some of the same tree with Coach Tressel and some of the same beliefs with Coach Tressel, he has been around some other people that he has grown from. And that's what, you know, I love about this program. It's all about me growing. And again, I've been in it for 27 years, but every single day I'm still growing as a football coach.
So you get hired in February. I think you got 3 spring practices in March, and then the pandemic hits, and everything's like you and I are talking now, Coach, virtually. Right. What was it like getting to know your group, the corners, basically in that month and change in person, and then virtually the rest of the way until you guys all got back to campus?
Yeah, that was the biggest challenge because, again, all of this is about relationships. And I believe, you know, I might be some of these guys' third defensive back coach and corners coach. And, you know, once they get used to a guy, then other opportunities come. So, you know, and face-to-face conversations are the best, you know, where you can sit there and you can really get a feel for, you know, a person. So that was probably the most difficult thing because I am a big relationship guy. Because I have to find out what makes them tick. I have to find out how hard I can push them, what I can say. Hard to do that in a Zoom, you know, meeting because it's all good, you know. And when you miss those practices to really see how a kid responds to certain, you know, situations. I mean, I can ask you a question in a Zoom meeting, you just shake your head, yeah, I got it, got it.
Yeah.
And do you have it or do you not? And you don't understand that and know that until you put them in that situation out on the field. So that was the biggest thing to me. That was the biggest learning curve or biggest curve into building relationships. And I mean real relationships, you know, not just player to coach relationship with guys of just, you know, being able to sit down and talk to them and just, you know, spend a lot of time with them. You know, they can't come over your house right now. That's another part of it that, you know, that during that time that you have them over at your house, so they see you out of the coaching environment, you know, also too, and building that relationship that, you know, when I get on you, it's just like your dad getting on you. You know, the bottom line is I want you to be the best and I want you to be elite and I care about you, you know. So that was all of that, you know, some of that stuff is still happening now because we're spending more time together than what we did, you know, for 3 or 4 months in Zoom calls. I was still back in Michigan.
Yeah.
At the time, my family didn't even move here at the time. So that transition, that's what people don't realize, man. There's so much stuff that is still happening now, you know, that we lost in that period of time that we're just gaining right now.
Well, and I would have to imagine, you know, obviously the defense has not played very well in the first couple of games. You guys know that. That's not breaking any news. But to have those relationships as you try to work through these tough times, because like you say, you're still learning a lot of the idiosyncrasies. Has that been a challenge as well as you guys all try to move this thing forward and get better this week?
Yeah, and that's the thing about it, man, is just to sit there and stay focused. We knew that we had to, you know, we had 2 new coaches on defense. We got a lot of new, you know, bodies on defense, a lot of new people on defense that were inexperienced. And that's where the spring ball, the summer, and all of those things. And hear me out. You guys, you know, Coach Fleck and myself and none of the defensive coaches will ever sit there and make excuses. We know we got to play better. But you got guys in position. They just have to learn how to make plays. And that's the thing that experience and reps and seeing it a bunch of different times helps young kids sit there and do. They gotta feel. And you know, when you're in a Zoom or you're in a walkthrough, you know, that you really can't tackle and hit and all those are all reps that you have to have and that you need, you know. So, and like you said, the relationships, everything is just, you know, COVID was not good for us with an inexperienced football team, especially defensively on a inexperienced side of the defense. But every rep we take, we're getting better. Every meeting we have, we're getting better because now they're face to face, and it will come. It definitely will come, and our guys will play better, and we will play better defensively.
One guy you don't typically have to worry too much about, who I think has been one of the most underrated Gophers defensively the last handful of years, given all the stars they had, is Coney Durr. And you get to work with Coney a lot. And obviously Benjamin St. Juste is a part of that too. But I want to focus on Coney because I've always enjoyed talking to him. And he's had quite a career here. You probably know some of it, going back to even the previous staff.
Yeah.
Playing in a bowl game out of nowhere because of situations, tearing his ACL, missing time, coming back, not playing well. Now I think one of the most underrated players in the Big Ten, if you ask me. What's it been like working with him, and how much do you lean on him as a guy who really has seen quite a bit in his career here?
Yeah, and it's been really fun. Actually, when I was at the head coach at Kent State and we played Minnesota, Coney was actually on the team. At the time, and we started talking about that game, and I had a kid transfer. Up here, Troy Dupree, who transferred up here from and we start talking about Troy. So, but Coney is tough. He's hard nosed. He's a very smart player. Takes a lot of pride in what he does, and those things are. Anytime you have those qualities as a football player, and he has an open mind and an open heart to continue. Again, I go back to that word, growth is growth. What is it, third or fourth, cornerback coach that he's had.
Yeah.
Again, how much is he going to take from me? That's what, happens at the beginning, so there was a lot of conversations with him at the beginning of, hey man, I know that I'm the third or fourth, all I want is to give you information that you can use. That's it, and I know you've heard a lot of different things but just whatever it is, take it. If it works for you, it doesn't. I don't have big enough ego. Let's sit down and let's talk about, how we can make you better. And that's it. Because, this may be your last go around. You may have another year with it, but at the end of the day, you got to go out there and play. So how can I help you? What can I bring value to your game? And that was it.
Last couple of things for you, Coach. It's Illinois this weekend. They're dealing with COVID-19 like everybody, maybe at a different level, given the players that they've missed, might be down to third or fourth string quarterback, depending on injuries as well. So as you prepare for this game, how do you prepare for a game when you don't really know who's going to be in, who's going to be out, all of those things that you would typically know in a normal year? What's the challenge been like to get ready for this game?
Yeah, and that's the challenge. That's part of the challenge also too, because you really don't know who's going to be out there. But we really are to the point. It's really not about Illinois. It's about us. It's about how we play and the things that we have to, continue to do and get better at defensively. So, and that's kind of really been our focus. They're going to have someone out there, and the ball's going to be kicked off, on Saturday. So, it's really just about us fixing ourselves instead of us really concentrating a little bit more on Illinois. Of course, we game plan. Of course, we strategize and everything else. But a little bit more this week has been focused on getting better at the little things, and because that is what has been beating us is doing the little things. Typically, again, Illinois is a very talented team. This is, again, my 12th year in the Big Ten, so I've played them,
right,
a bunch of times. And Lovey's a very good coach and has a very good staff. So, they're going to be talented. They got talented kids, the same boat as us. When, you lose a bunch of guys, it's just inexperienced guys out there. And the thing that we got to make sure that we don't happen is one of those young, inexperienced guys has a breakout game.
Yeah.
That happens. A lot of times you'd be like, wait a minute, who is that dude right there? And you have no idea, what I'm saying, who he was.
Yeah.
But really this week, man, we've been focusing a lot on us.
My thanks to cornerbacks coach Paul Haynes for being our Gopher coaching guest on Gopher Review and Preview. I appreciate his time. He's a great storyteller. As you mentioned, has a long history with PJ Fleck going back to Ohio State in 2006. Special shout out to my son Grayson for making a cameo. As you can tell, we taped that portion a little bit earlier in the week. It's 2020. The kids are going to have a say. They're going to be a part of pretty much any show that I do from home. So that was Grayson. That was the gray man, making sure that I was doing what I was supposed to do. He was supposed to be watching his sister. That didn't go so well. But thank you for watching. Thank you to Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union for their help with this show all season long. Remind you, if you're interested in becoming a member, you can learn more at affinityplus.org, learn about their top-rated mobile app, learn about their video banking, learn about all the services that they provide to help you take care of things financially. That's affinityplus.org. Affinity.org. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you next week on Gophers Review and Preview.
At Affinity Plus, our members come first.
Affinity Plus helped me a lot to pass through this tough time.
My family was negatively affected.
Affinity Plus showed that they are invested in our success.
You are the top priority.
And they did it proactively.
I have found them to be respectful, supportive, and compassionate.
I don't feel judged.
I feel when I go, I'm in safe hands.
And that is why I bank with
Affinity
Affinity
Plus.